Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me once again is Michael Thatcher, President and CEO of Charity Navigator. Michael, thanks so much for joining me.
Oh, Brittany, I'm really glad to be here. It's good to see you again.
It is good to see you. We have talked before this time of the year. We've talked before about giving and seasons of giving. We have passed Black Friday. We have passed Cyber Monday, where people have gotten everything they need for themselves and their families. And now it's Giving Tuesday. So, to start off the conversation, how are people feeling about giving right now? Are they feeling generous? Do more Americans feel more inclined to be opening their pocketbooks? What does that look like?
So, we've just run a user donor survey at Charity Navigator, and we do this every year going into the giving season. Tomorrow's really the beginning of the giving season. It's open season, Giving Tuesday. It's a time for focused generosity. We've had a very tumultuous year. We've had a few pretty massive disasters when you think of the Texas floods, the fires in Los Angeles. And so people have been doing a lot of reactive giving. What happens now is it's a time to really think about the things I care about, and it's much more thoughtful giving, and it's what individual giving happens. In our surveys, what we found is about 32% of the people that responded say they're going to be giving more this year. So we're super optimistic about that. It was about 44% say they're staying the same with what they gave last year. But the key point is they're giving, right? And it was only about 8% that responded to our survey said they're giving a little bit less, and that's due to their own personal financial situation.
That's pretty good, though, that either it's staying status quo, more people feel more inclined to give more. Why is that? Because you and I have talked before about this intersection of politics and giving. We've talked before about in President Trump's first term, there was rage giving or the Trump bump, where people felt more inclined to give to kind of fight out if they didn't or if they weren't happy with the election results. Is that a reason why?
So I think many people see their generosity and their investments in the nonprofit sector as a form of action, as a form of, if I care about the environment, I can do something for the environment by actually making donations here. There's been a lot of cutbacks to international aid, to different internal national programs, and so people's individual giving are a way for them to keep supporting the things that they care about. So it is a form of action, and you could call it political action, but it's more about I care about this, and I'm going to put my money there.
To that point, you've told me before that giving follows news cycles, right? So when people see disasters like the Los Angeles wildfires, like that really horrific flooding in Texas earlier this year, people donate to causes that help those events. But people also follow what's happening politically and donate there as well. We've seen this administration take a sledgehammer to USAID earlier this year, cutting billions to foreign aid. We also got a taste of SNAP disruption during the government shutdown. And once the One Big Beautiful Bill Act really goes into effect, millions of people are expected to lose SNAP benefits. Are you seeing people address that in their giving?
100%. And so what we saw going into the last week of October, when people were seeing that SNAP was going to, the funding was going to go away, there was a 600% increase in donations to food banks and food pantries. We launched a list. We always do lists that are sort of topical to what's going on in the world. We had a SNAP charities list, which were top organizations focused on food aid. Again, within the first week of launching that list, 1,000% increase in donations to the organizations on that list. So yes, there's a very definite reaction when there's something that is suddenly goes away or government funding goes away. The individual donors who care about these issues, they step up and they supplement as best they can. It doesn't replace government funding, right? The government funding is huge, and so there's a big shortfall right now. And so if these are issues that people care about, strongly encourage you to find an organization that's really doing good work and support them because they need your help.
And we're in a really interesting spot in politics, right? We've seen 4 years of President Trump, then there was 4 years of Biden. Now we're back with President Trump. We're about a year in to his second term. Are there any trends that you're seeing that follow suit with Trump 1.0, or is there anything that's different that's surprising you?
I think this has been different in the sense that there's been a more aggressive stance towards, let's say, international aid, towards different forms of charitable work. And so what is happening is I think transparency is key, ensuring that organizations, must be transparent. I also think that if you think about one of the conditions of being a 501(c)(3) nonprofit is a nonpartisan agenda. And so being clear on the fact that a nonprofit should not and does not have a political agenda is really important right now because that is coming under attack. And so it's there has to be real focus on the causes that we care about, focus on advocacy, but not in any way falling into a political spectrum.
And recent polling shows that most Americans have a pessimistic view of the economy. Americans aren't feeling great about their current financial situation. Fewer people are expecting their incomes to grow. The cost of living it keeps rising. People's wages aren't rising with that cost of living, right?
Mhm.
And I know that you said most people, it's either status quo giving, some people are giving a little more. Does people's sentiment surrounding the economy, does that concern you at all about this year or the upcoming months when it comes to giving?
I think, we should be concerned about the economy. At the same time, there's a certain amount of giving does follow the market, and the market is still fairly strong, although there's uncertainty, right? And I think there's a little bit of a lack of confidence. But again, I think what we're seeing, again, if I look at our donor survey, what we saw in that was more focus on, I really want to make sure that I'm giving to a good organization. I may also, one thing that I was an interesting set of consistent comments was I'm giving to less organizations, but I'm giving more to the ones that actually really have impact. And so people are looking for results from the donations that they make. So they're really thinking about their giving as investments towards social outcomes. And so for the nonprofits out there, it's like being super transparent about the difference you're making in the world and the impact that you're creating through the donations that you receive. It's going to be really important because donors ultimately, you're making a gift because you want to see a change in the world. And if you're not seeing that, why would you keep giving? It's that simple.
I mean, that's a really good point. So, how do people even begin to navigate that landscape? Because let's say I'm really passionate about X cause. How do I know, hey, this is the place I should donate because I'm going to get more bang for my buck?
I mean, that's ultimately why organizations like Charity Navigator exist. I mean, the reality is causes grab you by the heart. Like something you care about something and you are in a position where you can't help but you've got to do something about it. Either it's something so horrible you want it to stop or so beautiful that you want it to go on forever for future generations. When you have that sort of emotional passion, like I want to do something about this, find the next step is finding a charity that's actually focused on it. So let's say it's something around education and education for as part of our society. You find, at that point you can go in and you can search. Use a platform like Charity Navigator to do an evaluation of the organizations that are actually focused on that work, and then look for the ones that really have impact. You can use our rating system, but you can also really see if I care about this one thing, does my donation actually lead to that result? People often care about, the financials. In other words, is most of my money going to the program? That's interesting, but what's more interesting is the difference that I seek to make in the world actually happening through the donations to this organization? Because then you know that you're going to make a difference with whether it's $100 or $1,000, that's where you want to put your money.
And when it comes to trends of giving, do you see people's values really changing? So I know that giving follows the news cycle. So let's say this cause is something that I need to give to. Maybe more food pantries need more assistance. So I'm going to put my money there. Does that mean other causes kind of get pushed to the wayside? Do you see any other
Mm.
causes that are not receiving as much as they usually do?
So, the beauty of I think the beauty of our nation, and you could look at this across the political spectrum, is that we all care about different things, right? So there's going to be a tendency, there's a bit of there is a new following the news cycle, right? I care about food aid and I want to make sure people have enough to eat. But then there are other things that I care about that are probably different than what you care about. And I think that's a good thing, right? And that kind of diversity is what leads to most organizations still finding what they need. I don't think that, you know, the, I'm thinking back just over the last 12 months. There's a quick reaction to a crisis, and Americans step up and they help each other, whether it's a hurricane, a flood, a fire, and that will take money, but it doesn't actually deplete what the people care about. Go back to, let's say, education. If you care about education, you still care about education, even though you were making a gift to the fires in Los Angeles, right?
And
It doesn't stop. It just means you have different resources available to you.
And something that has really stuck with me in one of our past conversations, you said something to the effect of giving is fundamentally American. Americans
Mhm.
like feeling like Mr. Rogers. Americans like stepping up and helping their community, helping the causes that they really care about. Why do you think that is? And why do you think that that's really nonpartisan? You don't see one party really out giving to an insane amount more
Yep.
so than the other.
No, it's a great point. I mean, first of all, look at our history, right? This goes back to Benjamin Franklin, who was really one of the first philanthropists, if you would, and also, government person. But we have over 100 years in the tax code. So at the end of World War I, they created the Charitable Tax Act. That's institutionalized it to a certain extent. And it's just, I don't know, when you have 100 years of practice that you've also built businesses around, it's 10% of the American workforce is working for a charity or a nonprofit. That's a really significant part of the U.S. workforce. So it's part of our DNA. And I really do think that giving is American, and it's something that we should be proud of and keep going with. And to your point about nonpartisan, that's the beauty of it because everybody gives. Everybody cares, and you could say it's American, it's also human, right? As human beings, we care for each other, but I think the US has just made it into something that's quite beautiful and very something we should be proud of, not something we should be ashamed of or try and remove. It's more a question of how do we make this better and more effective?
And as a journalist, I have a lot of friends, a lot of people in my life that I come across that aren't really super focused in the news. And they tell me, hey, no offense to you. I know this is your job, but I'm kind of getting fatigued of this whiplash of bad news after bad news. And especially within the past really decade of seeing just this news cycle that is more so even than 24 hours. Something's in the news and then out. You have to, if you're not on Twitter essentially for an hour, you've missed an entire news cycle. I'm
Yeah.
curious that have you seen more giving in Trump's first presidency versus this second term? Just I know we're just almost a year in, because is there a sense of people maybe feeling not complacent, but a sense of fatigue?
So no, in the sense that like if you compare the first presidency to the second presidency, there was not the elimination of U.S. aid the first time around, or an equivalent, right? And so that created a huge shortfall that donors stepped up to, and that called people out in a different way to say, "Hey, I want to take care of these programs in some part of Africa or other parts of the world." There was also certain national programs and funding for national work, whether it's in research and other areas or the environment. That's also people are stepping up to trying to fill the gap. So it's different. It's quite different, but there is this reaction to, but I think what I'm seeing is it's more, I want to make sure that this work continues. It's less being against what's going on. It's more about continuing some work that people feel is important.
Charity Navigator, you're saying, is seeing that people are either giving the same amount that they've been giving or feel more inclined to give more. That's what most people are going to be doing. But this was not a major election year, aside from the New York City mayoral race across the river over there, or a few governor's races across the country. But we are heading into the midterms in 2026. So are you anticipating any changes in giving as we head into the next year?
So there tends to be a bit of a shift towards political giving, right? Which can, I think people often see it as this can take away from giving to nonprofits. It's similar to um, I think the real numbers don't actually show that when you look at it, after the fact. There's a lot of attention that goes to the election cycle, but the work of the nonprofits is still going on, and I haven't really seen a massive detrimental shift there. So I'm not really worried about that right now.
And now Giving Tuesday is upon us. So when people are thinking about where they want to donate, what good causes they want to give their money to, what is your biggest piece of advice to them?
I think the biggest piece of advice, if you're, give with your heart. So follow the causes you care about. Go back to what I said. It's whatever's got you by the heart, follow that. But then take a moment to really find a great charity doing work that's impactful to address that cause. So, the way I like to look at it is follow your heart, use your head, but then go out and, make that donation, right? Don't just do the research. Actually got to give within your means, but give generously. This is a wonderful time of the year, particularly Giving Tuesday. It's a really special moment where we stop all the sort of the spending on external things and we start thinking about where can I actually make a gift that actually makes a difference in the world to something I care deeply about. So care deeply and give generously.
I love that advice, especially as we celebrated Thanksgiving. We all thought about what we were thankful and grateful for in our lives. So hopefully everyone's feeling extra generous today. Michael Thatcher, I always appreciate our conversations. Thanks so much for joining me.
Now, Brittany, happy Giving Tuesday and have a wonderful giving season and end of year. Thank you.